Thanks for everybody jumping on so late. My flight was delayed by an hour and change flying back from Fort Lauderdale. And it's been a long day. Operating on about 3.5 hours of sleep, maybe 3.5 hours of sleep. So wanted to get this done just because this was a good time to knock it out real quick. I'm going to go through the questions and on the online chat on Jacketsonline. And if you're not a subscriber, you can join now. We decided to run a special, or I did last night when I got to my hotel room at like 2:30 in the morning. It's called Miami Miracle. The code, you get free access until the Georgia game. So for the rest of the regular season, if you are not a subscriber, check us out. Helps us out, helps me do more things with the channel, helps me cover stuff. I guess I am wearing some sort of weird Adidas shirt that might have some red in it, so don't judge me. So I'll just start going through the questions real quick. And this may not be as long as a normal video, but due to travel and some family stuff, I want to knock this out real fast. The first question is, did you dance with the players in the locker room after the game, and what is your signature move? I did not. It was funny. We got to walk by the locker room and hear them like coming in after the game, and that was like super cool to see, like hear how pumped up everyone was, and see even like some of the like tangential people that like work on the staff that never get noticed by people like media, like people who do like their videography or like video team that actually cuts up the game film for the staff. All those people like celebrating, nutrition staff, they were getting meals ready and everything outside the locker room, and just seeing how excited everyone was after the game. So that was really cool. But no, I still think the highlight of the day was we're sitting there and just cracking up listening to the security guard, and the way that the Dolphin Stadium works is they had like this side room. We were in some like what is normally some probably VIP room or something off to the side, and there was a security guy like kind of working the door in the back of it, and he's talking on his cell phone to his buddy, and he's like talking about how stupid Mario Cristobal was and like how he blew this game, and just talking at full voice, like like 30 feet from us, and just the whole media cracking up about this guy like losing his mind over Mario Cristobal. So that was kind of awesome and super entertaining in the moment, as we were all kind of decompressing from what we just watched go down. Were Mario Cristobal's Miami endgame shenanigans the stupidest blank you've seen in your college football coverage career? How about in your life generally? I looked at so Chad from the AJC sitting next to me at the game, and I kind of looked at him and I was like, why are they running a play here? Like, why not? Like, as soon as this kind of sequence started, I was like, just take a bunch of knees and like get out of here. Like maybe you give the ball back with 4 seconds left or something. But like once they got what worked against Tech was actually getting the review, and then they put it back to a third down and burn the timeout and all that. And so that kind of screwed the clock up for Georgia Tech. And at that point, I was like, oh, this is over. Like, you just take a couple knees, or you run one play and then take some knees. And I was shocked that they ran the ball. And then I knew exactly what was going to happen, because it's what they did in the Virginia Tech game. They just did a strip drill, and they try to gang tackle the guy and rip the ball out. And it's hard to not fumble in that situation when they're like really going at it. And Paul Milo pulls the ball out, and it becomes one of the craziest endings I've ever seen. I think in some ways it's more insane than like the Miracle on Techwood, because the Miracle on Techwood was one play, right? Like they blocked the field goal and then return it. And it was whatever, it was 15 seconds or something, right? This was a whole thing that went on for a few minutes as they, they do the review, they get the ball back, they start running some plays. They run 4 plays to score. Like, it was not like just one thing. So I think that made it a little different, and the just kind of like uncertainty of what the plan even was. Like, are they going? It looked like they were going to try to play for the field goal, which made sense. And then to see Leary, as soon as I saw Leary, like saw all the DBs in front of Leary, I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I saw Haynes rolling out towards him. My only thought was like if the ball, like if he underthrows this, it's a pick, that's the end of the game. But I was like, if he gets it off, like he could score. And as soon as I saw the ball, I was like, oh, this touchdown. I was like, and literally you heard like five different versions of "Oh my God" being said aloud in the press box by various media people on either side of the coverage thing. Generally, you never hear anything. Like there's snarky commentary and things like that during the game, but people, there's no cheering or anything. And it was like audible gasps and like, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God." And then a bunch of people you just hear like frantic typing. And it was funny because one of the Miami paper guys, he accidentally, like in his like trying to publish his story real fast after the game, because a lot of places want this story up immediately. He published the wrong headline. He was telling the story that was like Miami survives Georgia Tech scare or something like that. And he had like published a story and it was up on their website, and he realized, oh crap, I've like messed this up so badly. I'm gonna get like murdered by like the Miami fans. And he was like panicking, and it was like utterly fascinating. And then the other funny part of it is, so like Chad and I get done about the same time. It was like 2 a.m. And because we all had to rewrite everything. And the Miami beat are just hanging out in the press box talking about what happened in the game. It was the weirdest. Like I've never really seen that before. Like that, it was so late. It was 2 in the morning. Like we're all like bleary eyed, ready to get the hell out of there. And Chad and I are looking at it. Chad's like, "You want to leave?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm ready to go. Let's go." And they're all just still sitting there, like relitigating the game and talking about what an idiot Mario was. And some of them were defending him, I guess, a little bit, but we're talking about how bad his press conference was. Apparently, the press conference was like basically a bunch of people in shock, not asking questions because they didn't know what the hell happened. Um, it's it was something else. So that's a little digression, a little backstory for you. We struggled largely to run the ball again, but didn't see Dante Smith or any other backs besides Haynes and Cooley for that matter. Is it all in poor line run blocking? Is there a bigger gap between the two running backs that we see? Is Smith healthy enough to contribute? Um, I don't know what the answer is. I don't know Dante's situation or why the running back rotation is what it is. They played 58 plays. There wasn't a lot of room to play three running backs in that game, and there was no holes to run in with what they were doing. So I think a lot of that's just how it's going to be until they can figure out their run blocking a little bit. I don't think it's like short of someone really like amazing, like a Gibbs type, no one's going to get a lot out of that. I mean, Jamal Haynes is pretty good at finding space, and he didn't do much. And Cooley, and they just really couldn't run the ball very well. So it was like throw the ball. They didn't throw the ball. The offense was just not very effective. They're having a tough time most of the day. So um, it was just a rough day all the way around. Mentally, do you think this is a bigger lift for the team and recruiting class than if GT had blown out Bowling Green and then lost a close one to Miami? I have no idea. We play what ifs forever. I thought as I said, I thought CJ Jackson was going to decommit from Georgia Tech at some point. I told Russell that the day the kid committed. And Russell had, I think, maybe a little bit of more optimistic opinion. It was going off my instincts, having covered Georgia Tech for 15 years or whatever it is now. Like, this did not feel like a kid that was like super locked in. And if you get him, great. And if you don't, if something he really likes comes along, it's probably not going to work out. So that was my take on it. Now maybe CJ has a totally different view of it, but that's been my take. And the Tucker curse with Georgia Tech, right? Like they've had one other commit from there in my entire time, and then the kid pretended he didn't commit to Georgia Tech and like lied to the HAC about it, and that was back in Paul Johnson's era. So that's how crazy the Tucker thing is there. It's Tucker, Woodward Academy, and I'm trying to think of where else they don't get kids from. Those are the two main ones that seem to just be absolutely like blocked. Yeah, the other kid was a QB from Tucker. He ended up going to Harvard. Um, yeah, Wheeler and Hoops, Walton. Walton's been okay. They got some guys on the rebound from Walton, but yeah, Walton's not been great either. Haynes King scrambles and design runs need to be a much bigger part of the red zone offense. Do you agree or disagree? I think they did just enough. He kept it and scored a touchdown where they needed one. Um, I think you do have to be more decisive, but I will say this: he has been very aggressive with running the football in the red zone. I thought he was. There was clearly a discussion about him being more aggressive with running the football in that game, and you saw it. And it probably was, the weather as well. You got to run. You got to run now to because they're bottling up their running back and do those RPOs and those things. And it was hard with the wet football, so that takes a lot of it out. So they may have been more read option heavy. I don't know what the calls were, so it's hard to tell. Maybe that's something Seth will get into on the couch coach. He might see something that I didn't see. I haven't had a chance to watch any of the game back yet, so I don't know. Do you think the intermittent rain was good? Was a good guy for us last night? I feel like it allowed our defense to play more downhill. I think it definitely kept speed in check, but I think it worked both ways a little bit. I don't think either quarterback was comfortable heaving the ball, but I thought Kevin Shearer did a really good job taking over as defensive coordinator of having the guys keep everything in front of them. And it reminded me a little bit of the best parts of when Georgia Tech's, I'm going to use a name that upsets people sometimes, Ted Roof's defenses played well in some games. They would keep things in front of them, and yes, you would get chewed up a little bit on the field, but when the field condensed, you were able to make plays, and then eventually you could make a play being in the vicinity. But the big things were the tackling was 100 times better, and the tackle on the edge was great. Miles Sims played a great game. Like, he was all over those screens. He took it completely out of their offense basically because they were trying to pick on him. He's tackling the guy with one hand, waiting for people to come clean up. They actually came and cleaned it up. That was something that was missing in the Bowling Green game, just rallying to the ball and attacking, right? And that was what they're good at last year when they were good on defense. They would, a screen like that, a smoke screen, they'd be all over it. The first guy would slow the guy down, and then the linebackers would come clean it up, or the safety. And they did that in this game, and that was a huge difference in just the defensive execution. If you take the screen game out and take some of the horizontal stuff, it changes the whole complexion of the defense. I also thought they were less, they were more conservative, for lack of a better term, and the blitzes were well timed when they tried to use them, like the zero blitz that got the one sack of the game from Paul Maiolo that made them have to kick a field goal. That was basically what one of the plays that helped win the game eventually. Those things are huge in those moments, and being smart about when you blitz and not showing it all the time. And they had Van Dyke a little rattled, and it really rattled him going the zero blitz there. So I thought that helped Miles Brooks look more like himself. It was the first game I thought all season he looked like the guy from last year. I thought he was starting to come along last week, actually. I thought out of the guys, he played one of the better games. Tackling's has not been like his greatest strength as a player. I think that's just part of his shoulder thing's not. It's not been. He's not had the normal upper body development that you would have because of his shoulder. I think that maybe hurts him a little bit with his tackling. And he was a corner, and maybe the mentality a little bit there has been a little bit of a transition. He's gotten better, and his tackling was fine in that game, and tackling was fine in this game. And he even tried to stop a guy on the goal line and got run over a little bit, but like, he tried and was in there and was very physical. So I thought that was encouraging to see. What the heck was that Pyron call on second and short that took a 35-yard loss when you just need 1 to 2 yards for first and goal? Do you think Faulkner gets too cute inside the red zone? So it's interesting. They've had, like, as Brent Key said in his post-game press conference, they've had that package, and I've noted about that like since before the season started, that they had some red zone and short yardage things with Zach Pyron. They have things with, as Brent said, multiple quarterbacks. There's a lot of different things. If the guy who whiffed on the block on the play hits his block, it's probably a touchdown. So no, I don't know it's too cute. I think you keep seeing the same thing going on the last few years with the different offensive coordinators. when you cannot impose your will and run the football downhill, you sometimes have to you sometimes will end up coming up with something, maybe overthinking a little bit and creating. That's what happened in the Bowling Green game. We had the turnover on downs a couple times, like trying to sneak it. They're just not quite getting the push they need yet, and that's probably the next developmental piece of the offensive line. The pass pro has gotten much better. The run blocking just isn't there yet, and so as that improves and they get maybe a little more dynamic at some positions, I think you'll maybe not have to have as much what people call cute plays or just trying to be creative down there. Um, but I didn't have an issue with the call. I think what sucked about it is that Zach hadn't played in a while, so it was tough to send him into that situation, and I think that was a tough call um, as a young player to put him in that spot. That would be more of my takeaway from it. What did they change in a week to get everyone playing downhill and filling gaps in defense? They had a very strong and seemingly pretty simple game plan, and they were able to execute it. And for the most part, guys did their jobs. And like 90%, and I was talking to a buddy about this earlier when I was waiting on the airport shuttle to go get my car. If you look at when the defense has played well, there's been typically two things. One is the offense is humming and they're confident. And the second part of that is that um, the the defense is guys are just doing their job. You're not seeing dudes like try to cover someone that's not their responsibility. If someone's looks like they're free releasing, they're getting on guys. Really, there was like one pretty bad bust in the game. That was it. And that was a misalignment pre-snap on the safety. And other than that, it was pretty solid. They were lined up and had the right guys. I mean, Restrepo killed them in the slot, but again, slots are hard to cover. You're not getting a great pass rush on Tyler Van Dyke, and he has some time. Those guys are going to slide open, and they did a good job of mixing the routes they used with Restrepo too, and having him run a quick hitch to the sticks or versus slants or crossing routes or whatever, or having him go vertical. They did a lot of different things with him to get him the ball in space. So I thought some of that you just tip your hat in offensive football in this day and age too. Um, Yeah, he did say they blew up. It was like a corner blitz on Pyron on that play. I think they sensed what was coming and called something appropriate. But there was like a missed block too. That was why it was such a looked like a broken play basically. But the corner didn't help. Uh, Over under 1.5 that Chase Lane and Blackburn are both back after the bye week. I think you see Chase Lane for BC. I feel pretty confident about that. Um, um, Leo, if he's back by UNC, that would be great. I think you got to be careful with Leo and not have him out there until he's 100%. But they're very excited. They're hopeful that maybe by the end of this month he'll be ready to go. But as Keith said, he does. That's like a week to week thing, like how much progress he's making, how's it going, and what the doctors are saying. So that's a little bit out of their hands. When he gets cleared, he gets cleared. Is there anything we can do about our inability to run the ball? Perhaps some occasional wild jacket, put more tight ends on the line, an obvious run situation. Spend more time practicing run blocking. Trust me, they practice run blocking a lot. We see that even when we're in the bits of practice we're in. No, I think some of it's just guys getting bigger and stronger and getting better at their techniques and stuff like that. I mean, you have a left tackle right now is basically whatever played 6 college games ever, right? Your right tackle is started. He's not supposed to be your starting right tackle. Jordan Williams is supposed to be, and he's playing his 11th start or something, maybe something like that. Not super experienced. The right guard's a new guy. Weston Franklin's done okay with it. Joe Fusel, like they're just not quite there yet. They're all still pretty young, you know. Kelly, do you see this team being able to hang within 3 touchdowns at Georgia Tech? As I said on Marcus Benjamin's podcast, our colleague that covers Miami, I said it'll either be a close game or it'll be a blowout, and in a negative way for Georgia Tech. And the moment I knew, and I think I wrote about this in my Q's take thing too, I was listening to them. I'm in the bathroom and the radio's on in there and washing my hands, and this guy's talking about how this is the beginning of Miami's playoff chase. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. I was like, A&M's like 7-8 win team this year, probably, with like maybe they were like a 9-win team with Connor Wegman healthy, but that they're not Alabama of years past. They're not Georgia. Like that was not like Florida State this year. They have not played anybody even close to that. So it was like that's why you're ranked 17th, man. Like you're not there. Like you got to win, like get to 8-0 or something. Then people start talking about you, get into the meteor schedule. And so as soon as I heard that, I was like, man, I was like, in my mind, I was like, there's no way that like if this is a mentality like the color guy has, you know, around the program, I was like, does not bode well for them at all. Let's say GT defenses play like they played yesterday for the rest of the year, and the secondary gets immensely better. Does Thacker stay or is he gone after the season? I have no idea what the plan is for Andrew Thacker. I don't know that Brent Key knows for sure yet what his plan is. Brent is a guy who's going to evaluate every aspect of his program. And that's the one thing I can tell you with total honesty, whether it's, you know, he doesn't control the janitor, but I'll use that as an example, from the janitor all the way to the top. So, you know, to whoever's underneath him, Aaron Joe, say the GM, everyone is going to be evaluated. So I think that when I look at it, I think that I don't know what's going to happen to Thack. I know Brent thinks the world of the guy. He's a great guy. I felt so bad for him. We were out of practice on Tuesday morning, and it's like he's like, just looked like his dog got shot, and he's, at least that was what he looked like to us when he came over and like said hello to me and stuff. He was fine when he was coaching and stuff. There wasn't any of that. I didn't get any of that vibe, but he was embarrassed, like clearly embarrassed for us to see him in that situation. I'm sure that it was a real reality check for him. And, Brett did what he needed to do to try to win the game. So like, it is what it is. What's your win-loss projection for us season? I still am in my 4 to 7 wins thing. The road to 6 they're exactly where I said they needed to be at this point. It's not at all the combination of how I thought the games were going to play out, really, but it is what it is. Thoughts on the defense and how they're able to tackle better? Did you hear anything the new DC changed up? I think that was effort and technique and just playing with confidence. That was not anything special. That was not anything like super unique. It was just the guys going out executing. Brent even talked about they didn't do anything particularly different. I think they had, if I were to hazard a guess, and I've again not rewatched the film and had a horrible vantage to watch a lot of the game and was watching like replays and stuff on the Jumbotron to see some stuff because we were in a corner end zone like this, facing most of the plays away from us for almost all of the game. So, my guess is they probably simplified some of the calls. That's what someone asked in the chat. Did they beat Miami if they had beaten Bowling Green? There's no way to know, man. That's that tweet that one Georgia Tech fan put up of like how there is no rationality in college football, right? Like the 4 scores of the Miami of Ohio game, the Bowling Green Georgia Tech game, the Miami Bowling Green game, Miami of Ohio Bowling Green game, and then the Tech Miami game. I try to tell you guys this every week. There is very little transitive properties from game to game in college football. Just look at what Georgia Tech did to Wake Forest and what Clemson did, right? Like, it doesn't it doesn't translate like it, especially in this age with the portal and the differences in teams year to year and coaching changes and everything else. It is so difficult every week for people to play up. Look at what happened to Kentucky playing the team to the east this weekend, right? Auburn pretty much had Georgia on the ropes. Auburn sucks this year, and Kentucky, who's supposed to be this hot team, goes in there and just gets boat raced. Like there are no like every week is a different week for every single team in college football, and even the teams at the top struggle at times, man. Like, and some teams are like Clemson's got a bad offense again. Like, you know, Duke's a really fundamentally sound team. Like everything's just like the teams that can be the most consistent week to week are the ones that are going to win, or the teams that can just outscore people. I think Florida State's really good on offense, so they're going to be a team that's in the hunt this year if they can continue doing what they're doing. Ohio State messes around with teams and has not looked great when I've watched them. I think Georgia's offense is taking a huge step backward, but they're still pretty solid on defense. So, I don't know, man. This is a weird season. I'm wondering if Michigan's going to be the team that like emerges from all of this. But all that's to say, like literally anybody can beat anybody right now. Like every single game left on the Georgia Tech schedule is not a game that I have like supreme confidence in going either way right now, other than maybe the Georgia game, because Georgia Tech has not won in 20 something years at home against them. So that one, I feel not particularly optimistic about. But the rest of the games, I'm like, yeah, like they'll have at least the puncher's chance, and they'll be favored in some games, and they'll be dogs in some games, and if they win the ones they're favored in, they'll probably go to a bowl game. That's how it's going to work. And if they don't, then it's going to be an uphill climb, and they're going to have to upset somebody. Kirby said every SEC team should be ranked. Kirby would tell you that was a BS line that he came up with to answer probably a stupid question. I saw a lot of good things from the sideline video tweet from following the winning touchdown. They were pumping each other up, high-fiving, and it looked like they're starting to get an identity of some toughness and maybe some leadership. Do you think that we move forward, we'll start to close at a more consistent product instead of the crazy ups and downs? Would that be a sign of the team maturing and playing with more confidence? Yeah. I think when you start to figure out what you are, and that's what you're going to see over the next 2 weeks probably in college football, is teams are going to start being whatever they are, right? Like, what is Wake Forest? What is Boston College? What is Syracuse? What is Virginia? Virginia's probably inherently bad. Pitt, what are those teams? Virginia Tech. It's unfortunate. This is like the worst year Georgia Tech could to not have like the coastal schedule, because there would be a real cakewalk to a bowl game probably with the normal coastal schedule they used to play. But yeah, it's just going to be interesting to see like how this team responds. They get the bye week. I think that really benefits Georgia Tech off an emotional win. Get the bye week, come home, play Boston College, and then you get back-to-back home games. And then on the 28th, they'll have the Paul Johnson College Football Hall of Fame thing for the UNC game. So that'd be cool too. And no one will be rooting harder for Georgia Tech to win in that game than Paul Johnson, because he does not like North Carolina. I know the press box is pretty businesslike. What was your reaction to winning TD? As I said earlier, it was a lot of, oh my gods. There was some of this stuff, like people slamming tables and just like disgust. Because and it was funny because like for much of the game, like J Bat and some of his staff were like behind me. It was interesting to kind of hear their reactions and all that stuff. And it was very fascinating, and just seeing how like people were just so excited. Which is the better time? I think people were excited because they saw something they never seen. It was like the blocked field goal that Miracle and Techwood. Like when you see something you've never seen before in person, it's amazing. Like I remember covering a game, a Georgia Auburn game. That was like the game-winning play was literally right in front of me. I was down on the field at the end of a game, and like seeing a game-winning touchdown like at the end of the clock or something for the first time in person, close up like that. And I was 20 years old or whatever. It's amazing. Like, it is an amazing thing, even as a guy who's now in his 40s, like, seeing something like some miraculous play, seeing Josh Nesbitt steal a football away from a Florida State player, like, all of those things are very cool to see in person. What is the better title for the next Miami 30 for 30? Mario, no. Cristobal on the ground. 2 live screwed. I don't know. I feel like the next one should be just like about squandered years. I don't know. Like they've been so mediocre since they joined the ACC. Just like pretty much irrelevant in national college football. And every time you feel like that was the one weird feeling I had going into this game for Georgia Tech was just like every time they've been so close to like the use back baby, then you see like them come out and lose Georgia Tech or whatever it was. Pitt, I think, was one of the teams that was getting them. Like, it's just amazing. Like, they cannot get out of their own way. As much as Georgia Tech fans complain, like, you would be going crazy if you had the talent that Miami's had and squandered. And how many NFL guys have they had even over the last 20 years and great players? And they can't even, they played once for the freaking league title. Like, they can't even get to the ACC championship game in the crazy Coastal. What do you attribute the up and down performance week to week, sometimes half to half? Should we expect that to continue? Yeah, it's the thing that Brent's going to try to figure out. And it's, in some ways a new team, right? Like a lot of the core pieces changed out from last year. You had a very veteran presence with the Charlie Thomases and the Andy Elys, Keon White. And those guys are gone. And the guys who are back are not the most vocal people on the team. And as you continue to change those things, there's going to be growing pains. This is a team that's also building a different culture and a different identity. And last year they kind of rallied around Coach Key and playing for each other and sort of flipping the bird to their former coach in a way. And this is something entirely different now. If Haynes King has a great year, will he stick with Tech? If a top 15 team comes calling in the portal, I don't believe Haynes is going to. He would have to graduate again, I think, to transfer again. And like the roll of the dice to do something like that would be pretty insane for a guy like that if he's doing well at Georgia Tech. Like if you're Sam Hartman and you put 4 years in at Wake Forest and you were really effective as a quarterback and you have maximized what you can do in that offense, then by all means go into Notre Dame. Makes sense. If you're Haynes King, what is first of all, what's the move that you would go to? Because the logical schools aren't going to have quarterback openings that I'm thinking about in my head. Two, like he's in a situation where they have built an offense around him with his skill set. And he's seen the other side of that with Jimbo Fisher. I think he would be a lot more careful about that, but also the third transfer thing, I think is a little bit problematic. Any new injuries coming out of the game? I was trying to figure out and maybe people in the chat know this. I saw Corey Robinson had played. Was he in on the last series or not? I don't know if that's when he came in the game or he came some other point for Jakaya, and I don't know what the thing was on that. I'd have to go back and look. I didn't think to look at it, and he wears 55 and Jakaya 75, so it isn't something that would obviously catch my eye watching it live. So, yeah. But other than that, injury-wise, there's nothing like off the top of my head that I saw. What were they thinking not using timeouts earlier on Miami's last drive to preserve time? I think he wanted to see at what point the defense kind of bowed up. Christian Leary sliding into the end zone. I think Christian lost his footing. The turf was contaminated. That would be the best way to use it there. Not kicking the extra point. I know they're concerned about penalties on kickoff, but even still, that was sort of, I think Brent Key overthought the situation a little bit, and him and whoever was discussing it with him, that was probably like an over analyzation moment for him. And it's a young coach. Like I think most coaches I know kick the PAT and just assume your guys aren't going to do something stupid. And then I already talked about the 2 QB play. If we make a bowl, how much does that shift NIL money in our favor? Meaning, does it significantly lower the price tag to keep young talent and free up more funds to go after new faces? I have no idea, man. Like, I have no idea what the market is. I can tell you that there was definitely a positive reaction on the NIL front to what happened on Saturday from talking to somebody that's involved in that and trying to raise money for Brent. So, does a bowl help keeping guys from looking around? Yeah, guys want to play in winning teams, man. Can you imagine being like Jalen King right now, or Dante Smith, or any of the guys that have been around for a little bit that just haven't experienced a winning program? At Georgia Tech, other than maybe their true freshman year where they're redshirting. In the case of I think Dante and Jalen King, like those guys have been here through literally one of the worst eras, other than the early '80s of Georgia Tech football, even worse than the Bill Lewis era. So, yeah, like yeah. Did the Miles play well enough for Coach Key to add the lawbackers? Still pending review. I always think that's so funny. I talked to his dad, Marcus, when that first happened, and he said that it was like one of those things. It was like he wanted to be known as that and just didn't let it be known, I guess, early enough. It's sort of like the Jordan Punches Mason thing. How does a team suddenly get better at tackling in 1 week? I know it just can't be practice. This is a mental thing with Shearer versus Thacker. I think it's a confidence thing, man, and playing with confidence and executing and having a coach be very blunt about where you are, what your situation is, and what the expectations are. And if you aren't, the hook's very quick. What injured players do you think we get back after the bye week? Who do we miss the most? I talked about this a little bit earlier. Hopeful that maybe Jordan Williams will be back for BC or Carolina. I think Chase will be back. I don't know about Leo. The guy they're missing the most right now is Sylvain Yondagen, because they can run Micaiah Scott at the field end position. It's okay at times, and at times it isn't. And they really need him to play some defensive tackle, so they're swapping guys in to do that. And he is a guy who can get pressure without bringing a blitz or whatever, or needing a lot of help. He was the one guy that could easily make something happen. And I thought that losing Sylvain was huge for the team. And so that's the one that will be really interesting. When will be the first opportunity to interview Shearer about play calling, taking responsibility of the defense or game plan? That'll be the first of never during the regular season. This week we're talking to Brand on Tuesday and players on Wednesday, and that's it. There's not even a Thursday media avail because it's a bye week. They're trying to wind it down. I had requested that we might get to talk to either the coordinators or some assistants this week, and apparently that is not going to happen. And given what's going on, I totally understand after having a coaching change that they didn't want to make them available. So I don't really have an issue with it. It's what I would do. Do you agree, given our chaotic record, our highest probability when remaining on the schedules against UNC? Yeah, no. I would say it's at Clemson because they seem to beat ranked teams on the road. And I assume Clemson will be ranked when they play them probably. And so I would think at Clemson would be, if you follow the trends and how they've gone since Brent's been the head coach. Tatum scored low again on the PFF grades and looked pretty lost at times. How long till we see some of the other linebackers get worked in the rotation? Are they trying to manage red shirts, or are they likely just lost? They're playing Braylon Oliver, they're playing Kyle Kennard, they play Paul Miola. Playing Paul makes more sense than playing, say, I'm trying to think. So, all right, so this gets into like who plays what on the defense, right? So Tatum, the one thing they do have sort of a plethora are guys who can play weak side linebacker. So you have really two guys who are your sort of quasi starting weak side linebackers. They end up playing next to each other, and Paul and Tatum, right? They both sort of play the same position best. Paul ends up playing Mike more because they're, or Money, whatever, or Mac, whatever they call the middle linebacker. And Tatum plays weak side when they're on the field together, right? Then they bring Eifert in and Paul slides it to weak side. And then they bring in Andre White and the same thing. Or they bring in Braylon Oliver and those two can interchange. So the next guy up is of the freshmen would be Jacob Cruz right now. Jacob Cruz is a middle linebacker, so that doesn't do anything at that weak side position because you have three weak side guys that they like. You have, Paul Maiola, you have Tatum, who they keep starting, as you said, who's not been productive a lot. And then they have Braylon Oliver. So, like, you're not going to sit one of those three guys to play Nakari Ashley, who's, would be the next young guy, I guess, up, or Ashton Heflin, or there's, the next guy up, to be honest with you, would be like Tyson Miguez, and they're not playing him either. So, like, no, I don't think. I think as long as they're competitive for a bowl game, as long as you're in the bowl hunt, I don't think you get into the situation where you just play kids to play kids. But Tatum needs to figure out how to be productive because he is a guy who's very effective when he is locked in. And as you said, he's looked lost at times, and I'm not sure. This is more of a how is sausage made question, but what is it like for you and Russell when coaching changes are made and scheme changes? It's a pretty short amount of time Georgia Tech when running Paul Johnson's offense to whatever Pat Node was trying to do, to Faulkner's air raid adjacent scheme. How do you guys stay up on what they're trying to do when recruiting targets fit into scheme? When they switched, I understood what. I haven't talked to Jeff Collins. I understood what he was doing even before he hired his OC, and he didn't get the guy he wanted to hire out of the box, anyways, and hired Pat Node. Because if you remember in his press conference, he was trying to hire Kendall Browse, I think it was, but ended up not happening. I think that was who it was, but they were going to run an NCAA spread, which is what Georgia Tech's run for the last 4 years. So I sort of knew what that was, like what it would be. And really, Buster runs some variation on that with some other concepts in it. So you just kind of look at it. It's what everyone else runs, and the personnel things are not that different. It's some changes with like offensive linemen, maybe what you do with your tight end or don't do with tight ends. Some of those things require looking at, but it's the offensive line was probably the biggest changeover from Paul Johnson to what they were doing, and obviously recruiting tight ends, as Jeff liked to make a big deal about. But like the reality was, there was just they're all guys. The offensive line recruitings were changed because a guy who would be a tackle now, like say Ethan McKinney might have been recruited. Well, actually, he's a bad example because he was a thinner guy. Say Ja'Kai Leftwich might have been a guard in Paul's system, or Jordan Williams, and he might play tackle now. Those are sort of the differences. Should Tech fans expect a great season next year with the offensive talent returning? You get King in the second year, possibly all five. You're not going to get all five starting offensive linemen back. You'll get 4 of the 5 because Connor Scaglione will be out of eligibility. Most of the receivers back, ton of D linebackers can't be much worse. The linebacker thing to me is the one that's probably the biggest concern going on forward, and maybe that's why they keep playing Tatum. But they're low on guys with remaining eligibility, like the core of the rotation. You're right now, I guess your starting linebackers next year would be Kyle Eifert and Trinidad's Tatum. So that's sort of like that's probably what they're going to hit in the portal the hardest, I'm guessing. The D, should mostly return. You lose Jay King, you lose Miles Sims, but you'll have the other guys back. Yeah, no one knows what the schedule is yet for 2024 yet. So we know what the non-conference schedule. We know they can play Florida State, and that's it. What do you think the spread will be when Tech beats Colorado in the Holiday Bowl? That would be awesome, and it'd be hilarious in a weird way. I was looking at some of the bowl projections today. When they get more of them up, I'll put them out. Like one of them had them playing USF, which would be hilarious for me as the guy on the USF site. One of them had them playing UCF in a bowl game, or maybe that was last week, which would be a very funny one for Brent because he's still, I think, pissed they lost that game last year, even though it got Jeff fired. And then there was, we're going to play like Army, which would be interesting with Jeff Monken because there's still probably a few people on the site that wish Jeff Monken had been the coach after Paul retired. So, yeah, a prime key Holiday Bowl. I would love it. I want to go to San Diego. I just want to. I was telling somebody today, I want to cover a bowl game. I don't give a damn like what bowl game it is. Like, I don't care if it's the Gasparilla Bowl on December 23rd. I prefer probably not to be that one because that kind of sucks like right before Christmas. But I'll take anything from like the 28th on, or before the 23rd. I don't even care. Like, go to the Boca Raton Bowl. It doesn't matter to me. Just go to a bowl game. It seems like we play better at away games versus home games. Do you think the poor attendance may have some impact on our kids' ability to focus on their play at home games? I think the crowd absolutely has a factor in this, and this is something I keep harping on the board, and people keep telling me that I'm being a jerk or and giving the million excuses that a lot of Georgia Tech fans have for why they don't come to games, and I understand it, but support your team, show up. It's 6 weekends a year. Like, figure it out, man. Like, and so many other people figure out and sacrifice a ton to go to like road games, let alone home games. If you care this much about this thing, like, figure it out, man. Like, and I understand there's points in your life where maybe there's going to be a couple year stretch where it's difficult, where your kids are doing something or whatever. But trust me, I deal with this all the time. I get a lot of parent guilt for not being available to go, say, to my son's soccer games, like my oldest son or whatever. But that's what it is. So, yeah. How much, and I do think it impacts things 100%, because if you had a crowd to feed off of that jacks you up, gets you energized, and you play harder, how much of the relief is it that you don't have to do 2 weeks worth of negativity and two back-to-back blowout losses or whatever? Yeah, like there was a little bit of a thank you prayer after the game of just like thank the Lord that I didn't have to deal with like just 2 weeks of negativity. That would have been really awful. A 3-pack of questions. What is your guess for the new top 3 impact players in the back half of the season, guys with significantly more impact or first row playing time? My picks are Kevin Harris, because it becomes what Jeff said, Horace Lockett, and Chase Lane. I agree with you on Horace Lockett. He's been the highest rated PFF D lineman in the last 2 weeks. He's starting to play like a man out there, and it's good to see him grow up. That's a guy that they've really needed to get something from. I would say Lockett. I think actually Paul Maiola will start playing better now. I think the scheme will make more sense for what they're going to do with him. I think that's one of the changes that you'll see with Shearer. He understands his linebacker group and their capabilities probably a little better than Thacker, and is going to try to figure out ways to put them in the best spot possible to keep them from getting exposed. And then on offense, I'll give you an offensive one. Like a breakout guy on offense. Part of me wonders about Abdul Janae. Like, he's really effective when he's in the game, and he's got this size thing. And I'm wondering if he comes in, I just wonder if he'll get overshadowed when Leo comes back. And if Leo's back and plays like 4 games, Leo would be my pick. Is Hank King dealing with a few lower body tweaks? He's limped a bit. This is the most he's played in a row, so it could be a bye, could be well timed for him. Yeah, he came in with like a foot problem, and he's played through that and kind of I think there's some there's some reasons why he probably doesn't want to run as much as he has to at times. Third, Tatum Dam. He's lost in the middle of the field. I'd rather play him a true nickel or a true weak sub linebacker 4-3. He cannot play in the two linebacker set. He could have been Ely like a second year, but this is rough. Yeah, Trent's just having a rough time, man. I don't know. But yeah, they ended up having to sit him a lot. If the scheme was so complicated, why didn't Thacker simplify the scheme? I I don't know if it was complicated. I feel like they just made some. There may have been just too much, like too many calls, too many checks, and I don't. I don't know. I don't know if they was not getting calls in fast enough, being indecisive. That's where it gets into real, like, inside baseball. You'd have to talk to Brent and the guys on the team and the staff and articulate like how things were breaking down. Like, for example, in 2009 when they fired Dave Womack, like I like got some inside baseball and kind of what was going on. And he couldn't get calls in on time. He was struggling. That was the very advent of sort of tempo, and he was trying to, another thing that defensive coordinators do sometimes, they try to guess what the OC is doing instead of just calling what would be a fundamentally sound call, or trying to be too specific to down and distance and tendencies and overthinking it and paralyzing their calls a little bit. And so maybe that was going on. I don't know. Like, I don't have enough information. It's probably not something that, I have a good relationship with Brent Key. I doubt this is something he'll ever want to really talk to me about, because he respects Thacker, I think, too much to get into him as a person, to get into, whatever happened. So we'll probably never get a full painted picture of that. But yeah, I appreciate everyone jumping on. Make sure you hit the like thing. Like, there's a bunch of you on here, but only like a quarter or fifth of you hit the like button. Helps me out if you hit the like. Subscribe to the YouTube page. Tell your friends about Jacketsonline. Once again, the promo we're running is Miami Miracle is the code word. It's valid this week, this through Friday, and it's gets you through the end of gets you through the Georgia game, basically free access to Jacketsonline. Just trying to get people whet their appetite. We always have people that don't know about what we do, and you guys are our greatest advocate. So I appreciate everyone joining me late on a Sunday night. I know people got work tomorrow. Maybe all of y'all are government employees and are off tomorrow or something. But for Columbus Day, I hope you are. I will not be. My wife's getting ready to go to Los Angeles for work, and I'm going to be home alone with a toddler for the next 4 days. So that's why I also want to get this knocked out. But thanks everybody for joining me. I'm going to be doing a lot of family time with the bye week this week. But thanks, and tune in probably next week. Well, I might try to do something over the weekend, like a kind of like midpoint report kind of thing. So stay tuned for that, and everybody have a great week, and enjoy the win.